We celebrate Purim by reading the Megillah. We celebrate Purim with Mishloach Manos and Matanos Levyonim. We actually are reenacting the way the Jews celebrated Purim back in the days of Shushan, where after their lives were saved. So what did they do? They gave Mishloach Manos to one another and Matanos Levyonim. That's what happened. Very interesting way of celebrating. Sending gifts to one another is the way you celebrate. Traditionally, when Hashem saves you from something, what Jews would do is get together and thank Hashem. Here they're sending gifts to one another. I'm sure they thanked Hashem as well. Why was it that, and the emphasis in the Megillah is clearly on this, there's no real description of their saying Hallel, there's no real description of just how they thanked Hashem. What they're doing is sending one another gifts. Why is that? So I think it's something that life experience has shown so many of us, especially in Eretz Yisrael. In Eretz Yisrael, we've gone through difficult times. There have been wars here, wars where our soldiers were elsewhere, wars where missiles, rockets were falling on people here. As we get into such times, what happens is that all of the animosity, all of the petty disagreements, all of the bickering, even the shouting matches in the Knesset, they all seem to disappear. Everyone talks to everybody. People are friends. What happened? What happened? You know, when you feel that your life is in danger, your priorities straighten out, and you're less into all the petty stuff, you realize that the essence of every Jew really wants the same thing. You get along with your neighbors even though you got on each other's nerves. People find it so much easier to tolerate one another. When your life is on the line, you realize what's for real and what isn't. You realize what's silly, and you realize what's important. For Klal Yisrael, the very first thing that happened after their lives were saved is that they felt for one another and recognized how together they really were. The truth of the matter is that this in itself is a way the Jew praises Hashem. The underlying reason for strife and disagreement all the time is because people are into themselves. And when people are into themselves, they're not so much into their Creator. And when people recognize how good Hashem was to us, and they get a little bit less into themselves, they're humbled and they're thankful. They have the time and the patience for one another. And that's a great way of expressing gratitude to Hashem, by getting outside oneself and caring about every tzelem Elokim. Being a v'halachta b'drachav, following the footsteps of Hashem. Being not only tolerant, caring, concerned, doing things for one another. Matanos Levyonim, caring about the unfortunate, the underprivileged. It's a way of our thanking Hashem as well. So that in every Yontif there was something that we learned. In Purim, where it was simply a matter of saving Jewish lives, where Klal Yisrael felt threatened, where there was a decree and our lives were at stake, and then Hashem miraculously made the whole thing disappear. What the Jew learned there is how much we are dependent on one another, how much we need one another, how much we are really connected to one another, and our faith is really one, and also how much we really care about one another when we forget our stupidities, when we know what's important, when our lives are on the line, and when it's all over and our lives are no longer on the line. If we really learned the lesson, then we learn to tolerate one another, care about one another, and be there for one another. So the Simchas Purim and Mishloach Manos and Matanos Levyonim is really understanding the essence of what it means to be a Jew, And especially when the Jew has the realization that his priorities that were responsible for all the petty differences, his priorities roll off, and that what really, really counts is so much more important than the petty things that divide, and where they're really, really there for one another and care. You can't drink all year, that's not a Jewish thing. You don't get drunk all year, but you can care for one another all year. Let us relearn the lesson of Purim and understand what it's like when your life is on the line, and appreciate what it's like when Hashem delivers salvation, when Hashem saves us, and how much we're able to care about one another and forget about what divides.